obviously it's kind of a bizarre place to work. But anyway, I hack on Perl a lot. Matt asked me a number of months ago if we did anything interesting with Perl, and I gave it a lot of thought, and I thought, well, we do some really bizarre things with these pack and unpack functions, which I had never really spent a lot of time thinking about before I joined Lookmark. So that's how this came about. Here I am. Can I get a sense of how long I need to spend on tutorials and stuff? Has anyone used Pack at all? Okay, everyone. Or not quite. Almost everyone uses Pack. How about, like, consider themselves Pack experts? Excellent. We got one packet. So I'm expecting error correction and echoing. Oh, great. Okay, so somewhere in between. I'm going to move fairly quickly through. I have kind of laid out 4 major groups. We do a crash course, like how does it work, what is it in general. Some standard uses more or less taken out of the documentation that exists. Some interesting ways in which you can, that there are pieces built into Perl that work well with Pack and Unpack, and kind of explore those a little bit, and then get into some of the really horrific things that we do with it, specifically with this job. Crash course. What is Pack? Well, there'll be a number of analogies through this thing, but probably the quickest way for most people to get a sense of what it is it's kind of like S3-test, except instead of formatting for people to look at, it's formatting for a specific byte representation of the game. So like S3-test, it's got, you pass it in a template, and then a list of things, and the template tells Pack how to interpret that list of things and what to do with it. The actual template rules are pretty hairy, and there's absolutely no reason to commit them to memory. Like sprintf, you know, if you need to do something with it, you go look at the documentation because you shouldn't have memorized all that stuff. Make room in your brain for something else. And I'm just going to make a quick note that it is a dwimy function. If you don't pass it enough arguments for the template, it's going to manufacture run-dash out of thin air and pack those for you. This is in contrast with Unpack. It's sort of like scanf, except there's no scanf in Perl, and it doesn't. This analogy falls apart here. So I'm going to just get the idea. You give it a template and a set of bytes, and the template tells it how to interpret those bytes, and it returns a list of what it found in the byte. More or less, the template rules are the same as Pack, and unlike Pack, if it runs out of bytes before it runs out of template, it dies horribly. The very, very quick version, here's how they work. Pack takes one or more arguments. That first argument, that uppercase L, is telling it one long, 4 bytes. So it's turning that 12 over there, which starts as an anonymous scalar, into a 4-byte long, and then wrapping that all up in effectively a string, but a set of bytes, which is 4 bytes long, exactly. Yeah. And then you can unpack that 12 using the same template and passing in the 4 bytes that you got from Pack. So that's the basic idea. We'll be seeing a bunch of different templates through the presentation, but like I said, you want the documentation if you are actually doing anything heavy with it. And there is actually a tutorial that comes bundled with Perl Pack Suit, which I think is kind of weak.
I've never even looked at it.
There you go.
Yeah,
there.
I looked at it recently, and yeah, I didn't have enough information.
So this is, we'll get into this. So I actually took these more or less from the Perl Pack 2. This is like the standard uses. Why does Pack exist in Perl? And the two that are given in Perl Pack 2 are, you get somebody else's bytes for whatever, you know, you have bytes coming from somewhere else, and you need to deal with them on a byte level instead of as Perl data, and you turn them into Perl data somehow. Or you're doing fixed length parsing. So, someone else's bytes.
Yeah, I recognize that.
Right. The canonical version being a foreign function interface. This is the reason Pack got built into Perl in the first place. You've got foreign function interfaces. In Perl, that's XS, meaning you're dealing with C code. You need to deal with that. And so that was why Pack was invented in the first place, as far as I know. And then I got excited because there were exactly 6 bytes bytes on that last slide. And part of one of the themes here is, you know, how much data can you pack into how few bytes? Seriously, dealing with excess, dealing with C code, is actually like, Pack is just awful for it. If you can convert binary C, hides most of the headache, mostly because it's basically if you give it a C header file and tell it which struct you want to be dealing with, and it parses the C header file and builds your pack. It handles the marshalling for you more or less. It doesn't work for all cases, but it will otherwise dealing with struct alignment will just, you will just have nightmares. It will just, yeah, eventually. But that's, you know, fundamentally, why does Pack exist? So that you can deal with C data. Another example given, this is another example of more or less the same thing, is that syscall that's built into Perl. I've never had to do it. I hope you never have to do it. It looks like hell, but nevertheless, you'll almost certainly need to use Pack. You've had to do it?
Well, yes, but also XENTL and IOCTL.
Yes.
Also, you need to use Pack oftentimes with them.
Right.
And sometimes set sock off and get sock off.
There you go.
But yeah.
They're basically the same thing. They're
Low-level
more or less
calls.
dealing with the really raw interface.
Well, they're all system calls.
They're all system calls, exactly. And syscall is the abstract version of that, which lets you call any system call by name or handle. I don't remember. Like I said, I've never had to do it. Anyway, if you need to, though, there's plenty of documentation. And anytime you're dealing with, you know, bytes, you're close to the metal. Perl can be a systems programming language, right? We're basically using it that way. It looks smart. We probably shouldn't be able to get away with doing what we do with Perl. And we do partly because it has these facilities that let you code pretty close to the metal. So things like network protocols, binary file format, and I have this bytes are language neutral. We'll come back to that. But documentation that, you know, describes these things like network protocols and binary file formats, they all talk about them in terms of the bits and bytes that make up the data, the layout. They're not going to talk about them in a really language-specific way, or if they do, it's C, and that's because C and bytes are just like fixed with parsing. So this, like I said, this came out of ProPack 2, and it's a really bizarre example that they gave. But basically, there's no scanf in Perl. And so if you're dealing with fixed width data, the example that they give is actually fixed width text. So you're dealing with the text file where there's columns, and you need to break the columns, but they're actually fixed width, and so they can run together. You can do it with substr. You can do it with regular expression. Unpack looks a little better. I don't know why they spend so much time on this in ProPack 2. I'm going to move right out. This is my contrived pi example. I love making pi. The contrived example, as you can see, we have the name of the pi on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, my subjective ratings, how tasty was it, and then 3 different ways of parsing it. You have the substr method. You have the regular expression method, arcane is regular expression should be, and then you have the unpack method. A couple things I want to say about this. Unpack A, the uppercase A is, not that it really matters, is a 1 byte of text that is space padded, and the 12 repeats it 12 times. So that's a 12 bytes, exactly 12 bytes of space padded text. But would be returned as a string with the space padding removed, and that's why they're not quite identical, because none of the other two solutions remove the space padding. That space in the template is meaningless. It's just there for clarity. And the A star is a greedy gobble up all the rest of the space pad text on this one. Everybody, yeah, that makes sense? So this is, what's that?
I mean, have you wrapped any harness around that to see what the passes?
No. I've never actually had to do this in the real world. That's why I have a terribly contrived example.
Okay.
It came from ProPack 2. This is supposedly like why Pack is in the language to do this.
So it doesn't get tripped up by shoefly or shaker lemon with the space in there?
No, it's always going to grab exactly 12 bytes,
Okay.
and then it's going to trim the spaces off,
Okay.
space padded.
Okay.
But it's always exactly 12 bytes.
Okay.